Hey there, welcome back to Story Slices, where we slice through the best Reddit tales just for you. Let's dive right into the first story. The first one is the Tittle story, and it starts like this. I never thought parking my car in my own garage would lead to a months-long battle with my homeowners association, but here we are. It all started on a Tuesday morning in May when I woke up to find a bright orange violation notice stuck to my front door. Notice of parking violation. It read in bold letters. Fine, $100. Reason, unauthorized vehicle storage in garage. I blinked at it. Sure, I must have misread. I'd lived in Sunnyside Estates for 3 years without issue. The whole reason I'd bought this place was because it had a 2-car garage where I could keep my prized 1967 Ford Mustang. I immediately called the homeowner association office, but of course, no one picked up at 7:30 a.m. I left an annoyed voicemail explaining there must be some mistake, then headed to work, determined to sort it out later. That evening, I drove straight to the homeowner association office after work. The receptionist, a bored-looking woman named Brenda, barely glanced up from her phone as I approached. "Can I help you?" she drawled. "Yes, I received this violation notice this morning," I said, sliding the orange paper across her desk. "There's clearly been a mistake. I'm allowed to park in my own garage." Brenda lazily tapped at her computer. Name? Alex Thompson? 1242 Sunnyside Lane. She squinted at the screen. "Nope, no mistake. You're in violation of Homeowner Association Regulation 7.3.2. Garages are to be used for daily transportation vehicles only. Storage of recreational or collectible vehicles is prohibited." I stared at her, dumbfounded. "But, it's my car? That I drive. How is that not a daily transportation vehicle?" She shrugged. "Says here it's a classic car. Those aren't for daily use. I drive it every day." I protested. "Look, can I speak to someone in charge? This is ridiculous." Brenda sighed dramatically. "Mr. Peterson, the homeowner association president, only takes appointments on Thursdays between 2 and 4 p.m. "Fine," I said through gritted teeth. "Book me in for this Thursday at 2. I spent the next 2 days fuming, going over homeowner association bylaws and preparing my argument. By the time Thursday rolled around, I was ready for battle. Mr. Peterson's office was exactly what you'd expect from a petty tyrant. Wood-paneled walls covered in framed certificates, a massive mahogany desk, and a high-backed leather chair that squeaked every time he moved. "Mr. Thompson," he said, peering at me over half-moon glasses, "I understand you have an issue with a parking violation?" I launched into my carefully prepared speech. "Yes, Mr. Peterson. I received a violation notice for parking my car in my own garage. I've reviewed the homeowner association bylaws, and nowhere does it state that I can't park my personal vehicle, which I use for daily transportation, in my garage. The notice cites Regulation 7.3.2, but that clearly refers to recreational vehicles like RVs or boats, not personal cars." Peterson leaned back, his chair squeaking ominously. "Mr. Thompson, Regulation 7.3.2 was put in place to ensure that garages are used for their intended purpose, housing vehicles used for daily commutes and errands. What was it? A 1967 Mustang? That's clearly a collectible vehicle, not meant for everyday use." I felt my blood pressure rising. "But I do use it every day. I drive it to work, to the grocery store, everywhere. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's not my daily driver." "Come now, Mr. Thompson," Peterson said condescendingly. "We both know that's not a practical vehicle for daily use. It's a gas guzzler for one thing, and I'm sure the insurance on a classic like that is astronomical." "That's not the point," I argued. "The point is, it's my car, and I'm using it as my primary vehicle. The homeowner association has no right to dictate what kind of car I can keep in my own garage." Peterson's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Thompson, when you purchased your home in Sunnyside Estates, you agreed to abide by the homeowner association regulations. If you can't follow the rules, perhaps this isn't the right community for you." I was speechless. Was he seriously suggesting I move because of this? "Look," I said, trying to keep my cool, "I understand the intent of the rule, but I'm not violating the spirit of it. My car isn't taking up space that would otherwise be used for a daily driver. It is my daily driver." Peterson stood up, signaling the end of our meeting. "The violation stands, Mr. Thompson. You have 30 days to either pay the fine or remove the vehicle from your garage. If you continue to violate the regulation, further action will be taken." I left his office seething. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Over the next few weeks, I tried everything I could think of. I gathered signatures from my neighbors, showing that none of them had a problem with my car. I took photos of myself using the Mustang for everyday tasks, grocery shopping, commuting to work, even a trip to the home improvement store with lumber sticking out the back. I presented all of this evidence at the next homeowner association meeting, but Peterson shut me down immediately. "The board has already ruled on this matter, Mr. Thompson. Unless you have new evidence related to a different issue, we're moving on." As the days ticked by, I grew more and more frustrated. The deadline to pay the fine or remove my car was approaching, and I was running out of options. That's when I decided to get creative. The day before the deadline, I drove my Mustang out of the garage and parked it on the street. In its place, I parked a beat-up 1995 Honda Civic I'd borrowed from a friend. It was technically a daily driver after all. The next morning, I woke up to find 2 violation notices on my door. One for the Mustang parked on the street. Apparently, there was a 48-hour limit for street parking, and another for the Civic. This time, the violation read, "Inoperable vehicle stored in garage." I stormed down to the homeowner association office waving the notices. "Are you kidding me?" I yelled at Brenda. "How is this car inoperable? It runs fine." Brenda, unfazed as always, tapped at her computer. "According to our records, that vehicle isn't registered to you. Therefore, it's considered an abandoned vehicle." I was speechless. They were really going to play it this way? "Fine," I growled. "I'll move them both." That night, I parked both cars in my driveway. Surely they couldn't object to that. Wrong? The next morning, another violation notice. Excessive vehicles parked in driveway. Limit, 1 vehicle per licensed driver residing in the home. This was getting out of hand. I called a lawyer. Sarah Jenkins was a no-nonsense attorney who specialized in property disputes. She listened to my story with growing disbelief. "This is absurd," she said when I finished. "They're clearly targeting you specifically. We can definitely fight this." We spent the next few weeks building our case. Sarah pored over the homeowner association bylaws, finding multiple inconsistencies and vague wording that could work in our favor. We also gathered evidence of selective enforcement, other residents with classic cars or multiple vehicles who hadn't received violations. Meanwhile, the violations and fines kept piling up. Every day, a new orange notice on my door. My driveway looked like a parking lot, with the Mustang, the borrowed Civic, and now my wife's car all crammed in. The situation came to a head on a Saturday morning in July. I was out mowing the lawn, making sure to follow the homeowner association's strict guidelines on grass length, of course, when a tow truck pulled up in front of my house. I watched in disbelief as the driver hooked up my Mustang and started to winch it onto the flatbed. "Hey," I yelled, running over. "What the hell are you doing?" The driver, a burly guy with a graying beard, looked at me impassively. "Just following orders, buddy. Homeowner association called for a tow." "You can't do this," I protested. "That's my car, on my property." He shrugged. "Take it up with them. I'm just doing my job." I was about to physically block the truck when I felt a hand on my arm. It was my wife, Lisa. "Don't," she said quietly. "It's not worth getting arrested over." I watched helplessly as my beloved Mustang was towed away, feeling a mix of rage and despair. This had gone too far. Monday morning, I was in Sarah's office bright and early. "They towed my car," I said without preamble. "From my own driveway?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Without notice? That's illegal." "Oh, there were notices," I said bitterly. "Dozens of them, but nothing specific about towing." Sarah nodded grimly. "This is good for us, actually. They've overstepped their bounds. We can use this." Over the next few days, Sarah worked tirelessly on our case. She filed an emergency injunction to prevent the homeowner association from taking any further action against me or my property. She also started proceedings to recover damages for the illegal tow and all the bogus fines. Meanwhile, I was dealing with the fallout at home. The neighbors were divided. Some thought I was making a big fuss over nothing, while others were starting to question the homeowner association's authority. One evening, as I was retrieving yet another violation notice from my door, this one for excessive mail accumulation, apparently, the violation notices themselves were a violation, my neighbor Tom approached. "Hey Alex," he said hesitantly. I heard about what happened with your car. That's rough, man." I nodded, too tired to say much. "Listen," Tom continued, "I've been thinking. Maybe it's time we did something about Peterson and his cronies. This homeowner association has been out of control for years." I looked at Tom with newfound interest. "What did you have in mind?" That conversation was the beginning of a neighborhood revolution. Over the next few weeks, Tom and I went door to door, talking to our neighbors about the homeowner association's overreach. We collected stories of ridiculous fines, arbitrary rule enforcement, and general petty tyranny. Many people were hesitant to speak up at first, afraid of retaliation. But as more and more stories came to light, a sense of collective anger began to build. We organized a community meeting at the local library, careful to hold it off homeowner association property. The turnout was incredible. Nearly every household in Sunnyside Estates was represented. As people shared their experiences, it became clear that my situation wasn't unique. The homeowner association had been abusing its power for years, using fines and threats to keep residents in line. "It's time for a change," I said to the gathered crowd. "We need to vote out the current board and elect people who will represent our interests, not their own power trips." The response was overwhelming. People volunteered to run for board positions, to help campaign, to spread the word. We were united in our desire for change. Of course, Peterson and his crew didn't take this lying down. They started sending out newsletters warning of radical elements trying to destroy our community values. They even tried to fine people for attending unauthorized meetings. But thanks to Sarah's injunction, those fines held no weight. As the momentum for change grew in the neighborhood, my legal battle was also progressing. Sarah had managed to get a court date set for early September, just a week before the annual Homeowner Association Board elections. The day of the hearing arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves. Sarah assured me we had a strong case, but after months of dealing with the Homeowner Association's twisted logic, I wasn't sure what to expect. The courtroom was packed. It seemed like half the neighborhood had shown up to watch. I even spotted Brenda from the Homeowner Association office, looking decidedly less bored than usual. Our case was simple. The Homeowner Association had overstepped its authority, selectively enforced rules, and illegally towed my vehicle. Sarah presented a mountain of evidence: photos, testimonies from neighbors, copies of inconsistent rule enforcement, and a timeline of the Homeowner Association's escalating actions against me. The Homeowner Association's lawyer tried to argue that they were simply enforcing the rules all residents had agreed to, but the judge wasn't buying it. "Mr. Peterson," the judge said at one point, "can you explain why Mr. Thompson's vehicle was considered a violation when 3 other residents owned similar classic cars without issue?" Peterson squirmed in his seat. "Well, Your Honor, those other vehicles aren't used as primary transportation." "And how do you know that?" the judge pressed. We observed them," Peterson stammered. "So you were surveilling residents?" the judge asked, raising an eyebrow. It only went downhill for the Homeowner Association from there. By the end of the day, the judge had ruled entirely in our favor. The Homeowner Association was ordered to return my car immediately, refund all fines they'd levied against me, and pay damages for the illegal tow and the stress they'd caused. But the real kicker came in the judge's closing statements. Furthermore, she said, "I find the Homeowner Association's actions in this matter to be a gross abuse of power. I am ordering an immediate audit of the Homeowner Association's finances and practices, to be conducted by an independent third party. Until this audit is complete and any identified issues are resolved, the Homeowner Association's power to issue fines or enact new rules is suspended." The courtroom erupted in cheers. I turned to Sarah, grinning from ear to ear. "We did it," I said, still not quite believing it. She smiled back. "We're not done yet. Now we make sure this never happens again." The next week was a whirlwind of activity. News of the court ruling spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. The upcoming Homeowner Association Board election, usually a low-key affair with the same people running unopposed year after year, suddenly became the hottest topic in town. Tom and I, along with a group of other concerned residents, put together a slate of candidates committed to transparency, fairness, and common sense. We called ourselves the Sunnyside Reform Party. The night before the election, we held one final community meeting. The energy in the room was electric. People who had never spoken to their neighbors before were now engaged in passionate discussions about community governance and property rights. I stood up to address the crowd. "Tomorrow, we have a chance to take back our community," I said. "For too long, we've let a small group of people use their power to bully and control us. But we've shown that when we stand together, we're stronger than any homeowner association board." The applause was deafening. Election day arrived, and the turnout was unprecedented. In previous years, maybe 20% of homeowners bothered to vote. This time, we had nearly 95% participation. As the votes were tallied, it became clear that we'd won a landslide victory. Every single Sunnyside Reform Party candidate was elected to the board. Peterson and his cronies were out. The first meeting of the new Homeowner Association Board was held in the community center. The room was packed with people spilling out into the hallway. As the newly elected president, I called the meeting to order. "Our first order of business," I said, "is to review and revise the Homeowner Association bylaws. We'll be going through them line by line, with input from all residents, to ensure they're fair, clear, and actually benefit our community." Over the next few months, we did exactly that. We simplified the rules, removing arbitrary restrictions and clarifying vague language. We set up a transparent process for handling complaints and violations, with multiple levels of review to prevent abuse. One of our first acts was to pass a right to park rule, explicitly stating that residents could park any legally owned and operated vehicle on their own property, whether in the garage, driveway, or on the street in front of their home. We also established a community mediation program to handle disputes between neighbors, reducing the need for homeowner association intervention in minor issues. The audit ordered by the judge revealed some troubling financial irregularities from the previous board. It turned out that Peterson and a few others had been using homeowner association funds for personal expenses. We turned this information over to the authorities and cooperated fully with their investigation. As for my Mustang, it was returned to me the day after the court ruling. There was some minor damage from the tow, which the homeowner association was required to pay for. Once it was fixed up, I made a point of parking it proudly in my driveway for all to see. A year after that first orange violation notice appeared on my door, Sunnyside Estates is a different place. Neighbors talk to each other more, help each other out. The sense of community that had been stifled by years of homeowner association overreach is finally flourishing. There are still rules, of course. We still have standards for home maintenance and community behavior. But now, these rules exist to make our neighborhood better, not to control and punish residents. Last week, I was out washing my Mustang when a moving truck pulled up to the house across the street. A young couple got out, looking excited and nervous as all new homeowners do. I walked over to introduce myself. "Welcome to the neighborhood," I said, shaking their hands. "I'm Alex, the homeowner association president." The woman's face fell slightly. "Oh," she said. "We've heard some horror stories about homeowner associations." I laughed. "Don't worry," I assured them. "We do things a little differently here in Sunnyside Estates. Let me tell you a story." As I recounted the tale of the parking violation that led to a community revolution, I couldn't help but feel proud. What had started as a personal frustration had turned into positive change for our entire neighborhood. Sure, it had been a long, stressful journey. There were times when I wanted to give up, to just pay the fines or even move away. But standing there, watching my new neighbors' worried expressions turn to smiles as I explained how our community worked now, I knew it had all been worth it. The homeowner association still exists in Sunnyside Estates, but now it truly serves the community rather than ruling over it. We've shown that with determination, unity, and a willingness to stand up for what's right, it's possible to change even the most entrenched systems. And every time I park my Mustang in the garage, driveway, or street, wherever I damn well please, I smile, remembering the battle we fought and won. It's not just about where I can park my car anymore. It's about the power of community, the importance of fair governance, and the difference that one person can make when they refuse to back down in the face of injustice. As for Mr. Peterson and his former board members, last I heard, they were facing charges for financial mismanagement. But that's a story for another day. Right now, I've got some new neighbors to welcome to our community, the right way. Update. It's been 2 years since the big shakeup at Sunnyside Estates, and I'm happy to report that things have only gotten better. Our community has become a model for how homeowner associations should operate, and we've even had people from neighboring developments asking for advice on how to reform their own associations. But it hasn't all been smooth sailing. About 6 months after we took over, we got hit with a lawsuit from Peterson and his old crew. They claimed we had illegally removed them from their positions and demanded to be reinstated. When I got the news, I'll admit my first reaction was panic. I called Sarah, our lawyer, right away. "Don't worry," she said after I explained the situation. "They don't have a leg to stand on. The election was completely above board, and we have documentation of all their misdeeds." She was right, of course. The case never even made it to trial. The judge took one look at the evidence we presented, including the results of that court-ordered audit, and dismissed their lawsuit outright. But Peterson wasn't done yet. A few weeks later, he started showing up at our homeowner association meetings, heckling and trying to stir up trouble. At first, we tried to be patient. We let him speak during the public comment periods, even when he went over his allotted time. That changed the night he showed up with a group of his old cronies and tried to shout down the entire meeting. I stood up, my patience finally at an end. "Mr. Peterson," I said, loud enough to be heard over his ranting, "you are out of order. If you can't participate respectfully, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Or what? He sneered. "You'll call your lawyer again?" "No," I replied calmly. "I'll call the police and have you removed for disturbing the peace. This is a public meeting, and you're interfering with official homeowner association business." He must have seen something in my face that told him I wasn't bluffing. He glared at me for a long moment, then stormed out, his buddies trailing behind him. After that, we implemented a new policy. Anyone disrupting meetings would get one warning. If they continued, they'd be barred from attending future meetings for 6 months. It was a tough decision, but we had to balance free speech with the need to actually get things done. Meanwhile, the investigation into Peterson's financial mismanagement was moving forward. The district attorney's office had taken an interest in the case, and they were digging deep into the homeowner association's old records. About a year after our takeover, Peterson and 3 other former board members were indicted on charges of embezzlement and fraud. It turned out they had been skimming money from the homeowner association accounts for years, using it for everything from fancy dinners to home renovations. The trial was a media circus. Reporters from local news stations camped out in front of the courthouse, and our little community was suddenly in the spotlight. I got called as a witness, along with several other residents. Testifying wasn't easy. Peterson's lawyer tried to paint me as someone with a grudge, suggesting that this whole thing stemmed from my parking dispute. "Isn't it true," he asked during cross-examination, "that you only started looking into the homeowner association's finances after Mr. Peterson fined you for a parking violation?" I took a deep breath before answering. "That fine was what first made me aware that there were problems with how the homeowner association was being run," I said. "But the financial mismanagement we uncovered goes back years before I even moved to Sunnyside Estates. This isn't about parking. It's about abuse of power and theft from our community." In the end, the evidence spoke for itself. Bank records, forged invoices, and testimony from a bookkeeper they had bullied into silence. It all added up to a damning picture of corruption. The jury deliberated for less than a day before coming back with a guilty verdict on all counts. Peterson was sentenced to 5 years in prison, with the others getting between 2 and 4 years each. As I watched them being led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. Mostly, I just felt sad that it had come to this, and angry at the damage they had done to our community's trust. But we didn't let this setback derail the progress we'd made. If anything, it made us more committed to running the homeowner association with complete transparency. We set up a public online database where any resident could view the homeowner association's financial records in real time. We started streaming our meetings online for those who couldn't attend in person. And we implemented a strict conflict of interest policy for board members. One of our biggest challenges was rebuilding the homeowner association's finances. Years of embezzlement had left our reserves dangerously low. We were facing some major repairs to community amenities, and we didn't have the funds to cover them. We called a special meeting to discuss the situation with all the residents. I stood up to address the packed room, feeling the weight of everyone's eyes on me. "I know nobody wants to hear this," I said, "but we're going to need to raise homeowner association dues to replenish our reserves." The room erupted in angry murmurs. I held up my hands for quiet. I get it. I don't want to pay more either. But the fact is, we have a community pool that needs resurfacing, tennis courts that need repaving, and a clubhouse roof that's one bad storm away from caving in. We can either pay a little more now, or a lot more later when these things become emergencies. To my surprise, it was Tom, my old ally from the reform movement, who stood up to support me. "Alex is right," he said. "We all wanted change, and we got it. But change isn't free. If we want to keep Sunnyside Estates a great place to live, we need to invest in it." After a long discussion, we put it to a vote. The dues increase passed, not unanimously, but with a solid majority. It was a proud moment for me, not because we won the vote, but because we had a real, honest debate about it. No underhanded tactics, no threats, just neighbors talking to neighbors about what was best for our community. Over the next year, we completed all the needed repairs, and even had enough left over to add some new features, like a children's playground and a community garden. As for my Mustang, it's still going strong. I drive it every day, parking it wherever I please, in the garage, the driveway, or on the street. Sometimes, when I'm washing it on a Saturday morning, neighbors will stop by to chat or admire the car. It's become a sort of community mascot, a symbol of our fight against petty tyranny. Last month, we had our annual homeowner association board elections. This time, instead of a contentious battle, it was a calm, orderly process. We had more volunteers than open positions, a good problem to have. I decided not to run again, feeling it was time for some fresh perspectives on the board. At my last meeting as president, the new board presented me with a plaque. It read, "To Alex Thompson, who taught us that sometimes you have to fight for your right to park. Why?" I groaned at the pun but accepted the plaque with a laugh and a thank you. As I looked around the room at my neighbors, no, my friends, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. We had taken a broken system and fixed it, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who would call Sunnyside Estates home in the future. The meeting adjourned, and as people were filing out, a new resident approached me. "I heard you were the one who turned this place around," she said. "My last homeowner association was a nightmare. I was scared to buy here, but everyone told me how great it is now." I smiled. "It wasn't just me," I told her. "It was all of us, working together. That's the secret, you know. An homeowner association shouldn't be about some board telling everyone what to do. It should be about neighbors looking out for each other and making decisions together." She nodded, looking relieved. "Well, thank you. I think we're going to be very happy here." As I walked home that evening, I thought about how far we'd come. From that first orange violation notice to now, it had been a long, sometimes difficult journey. But looking at our thriving community, I knew it had all been worth it. I pulled into my driveway and parked my Mustang right out front, where everyone could see it. Not as an act of defiance anymore, but as a reminder that when regular people stand up for what's right, come together, and persist in the face of adversity, real change is possible. And that, more than any fancy car or perfectly manicured lawn, is what makes a neighborhood truly beautiful. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.